Harvey Hubbell Show and Tell, and you're on it right now.
Oh, hi, Harvey Hubbell's Show and Tell. My name is Scott Roderick. I'm a behavior analyst. I'm also CEO of Quantum Behavioral Consulting, located in Connecticut and Massachusetts.
And you're my friend, and it's not that I don't. You haven't done any behavior modification on me that I'm aware of, have you?
That you know
That I know of.
of. Maybe a little.
Maybe a little bit. Okay. So I want you to. You're going to tell us what you do, but okay. No, tell me what you do first, and then we're going to go backwards in time. So what do you do, and where do you do it? I know you just said Connecticut and Massachusetts, but I know you have an
I wear
office.
many hats.
You,
Okay. So, well, actually, I do a couple of things. I forgot one of the things. I'll wrap back around to that. But so I'm the owner of Quantum Behavioral Consulting. We're located in Connecticut, Massachusetts. We have an office in Harwinton, Connecticut. We have a clinic or a center in Avon, Connecticut, and then we have an office in Long Meadow, Massachusetts as well. So we do a few things. We provide school-based consultations to programs that service individuals on the autism spectrum or other developmental disabilities and more, I guess, psychiatric disabilities, for lack of a better word. We also provide home programming and home support for families that's insurance funded. And we also provide center-based services for clients. We serve most of our clientele ranges from age 3 to about 22. So that's part one of Scott. And I started this company about 14 years ago, and I've grown it to, I think we have about 45 employees now,
wow,
which is crazy.
that's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I have another section of my life. This is my civic give back volunteer fun part of my life is I also I'm one of the founding members and vice president of Summit Adaptive Sports, which is a adaptive sports organization that provides recreational opportunities to people with physical, developmental, learning disabilities, primarily on the snow, but we also do summer sports too. So we do skiing, snowboarding, sit skiing in the winter. We're stationed out of Ski Sundown in New Hartford, Connecticut. And then we also provide mountain biking, hiking, and kayaking and paddleboarding as well in the summer.
Great. So I want to go back to when you were a kid. So I don't. I forgot to also mention. You're a dad, so you have a lot of experience riding mountain bikes down crazy hills and skiing, and you're an active kind of guy. And you're also tell me what you said before about being 50 years old, and then what happened.
Oh, so I turned 50. So I'm 51 now, and then when I turned 50, I always had this dream. This is kind of corny, it's like a kid's dream. I always wanted to be really like super fit and muscular and like shredded, as my kids would call it. So at 50, I was like, well, most people in 50, they're gonna get they're gonna go soft. They're gonna go sit around and read books. I'm like, no, I'm gonna up my physical fitness game here, drop my body fat, and really work on building my physique up and my strength. Ended up hiring a coach, and then I told my coach I want to go kicking and screaming into old age, as strong as I possibly can. I like to do things in a kind of weird fashion. Most people don't do that,
Yeah,
but I decided to.
that's incredibly awesome. But you need your body for your work
I do, and to be around for my family as well.
and to be
So
around for
it's
your
not all.
family. And I love your family. I
Yeah,
love your family. I
and
love.
you know my family.
I know your family. Noah used to work here. He was like, matter of fact, is he still working? Is he like an engine guy? He's like a real mechanical guy.
So Noah right now, he works for a company that he's a machinist. So he fabricates parts out of metal, I guess. I don't fully understand what he does. He's been there for 3 years, and he almost has his master machinist certification. So he seems really happy. He likes it. He goes in at 5:30 in the morning, which is crazy to me because I'm not an early riser. Every day, super good at work ethic, always on time, always at work, rarely takes time off. Yeah, I mean, super mechanical.
But yeah,
Super
that was his
mechanical.
gift. That was his gift. He was.
Oh,
He,
100%.
when he was a kid, was he always as much? I mean, he was on our farm. He was tinkering with engines, and he was always. You could always just see. But that's my grandfather was a machinist. My great
Yeah.
grandfather was a machinist, and I worked with some machinists who, on film sets, who just like, oh, we need this part, and then just dream it up, and then they make it, which is crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not.
Cool.
This isn't Star Trek 3D printing stuff. This is taking a machine, fitting it together, and so that's a beautiful brain you got there with that boy.
It is. It is. And I always say it's like living with MacGyver.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you're like, how did you do that? I'm like, he's like, I just like, and then of course he explains to me, and I'm like, I have no idea what you just said. So, um, yeah, so that's Noah. Well, you know him. He worked with you. He met you at that LD. I don't remember what that was. It was up in Massachusetts.
Is that how we met? How did I meet you?
How did you meet me? So I was thinking back. So you friended me on Facebook like 13 years ago. And I was like, who's this creepy dude? And I had like no idea who you were. And I was like, I don't know if I want to accept this friendship because you had this like at the time, like this giant like mountain man beard. It's really funny. And so I looked you up and I was like, oh, wait a minute. You're the dude I read about in the New York Times that has the film production studio in Litchfield. So I friended you and we started communicating back and forth. I think you found me on some dyslexia, like entrepreneurial CEO Facebook thing, I think. And you're like, oh, you're like the next town over from me. So I think that's how we met. And then you invited me up to one of your wild winter solstice parties.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And you were at Big Jim's. You were at Big Jim's too.
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
thinking.
yeah. That was a whole other thing. So I think one of the things is we have a lot of moms watching us. We're close to what did he say? We're 500,000 people. Okay, so pardon me? Close to 500,000 people. Close to 500,000 people is what he just said. So, but a lot of them are moms. A lot of them are moms and dads, and you're a mom and a dad. Well, you're a dad. But you know a mom, and you have a mom. You had a mom, and she watched you grow up, and so a lot of people are. We got moms of dyslexic children watching the show. So what is it like? Because now you're kind of you're shredded. You got a pretty good career where you're helping out society. You've got a pretty good family over there. I mean, so when you were a kid, what was it like for you when pre-kindergarten, pre-K? Pre-K, pre-first grade, first, second grade. Give me the whole story. What was it like at that time?
So, all right. So here's I don't have the exact. I'm pretty sure in pre-K I was in special ed. So I always say I was special ed pre-K through 19. That was truth. I went straight through the school system. I think I put in my bio, I'm a survivor of public school special education. So what it is, my brother was diagnosed with dyslexia. So very smart from my mom's standpoint. She goes, this is back in the 70s, mind you. She's like, I'm pretty sure this is genetics, so you probably are too. And I had like language delays and stuff. Probably had some behavioral issues, to be honest, at the time. But so I was put into kind of like a head start pre-K classroom. Actually, I found my picture. It was funny. I found it a little while ago. And so that kindergarten, first grade, what was it like? I don't remember that much back then, but I remember really not liking school. Even back then, I actually hated school pretty much until I went to college. I was like, I got to like be like okay with it like towards the end of my high school career, but I was never a fan of school. In fact, I hated it. I avoided it like my whole pretty much pre-K through most of my high school career. And then I got addicted to it and kind of went crazy with it, but we'll talk about that later. But pretty miserable. as a kid in school and didn't particularly like it very much. I can talk more and more. The older I got, it got worse as I got older, and then I stopped caring, and then it got better. So
That's so. So your advice is just stop caring.
no, no, but that's not how it happened. So like when I was really young, for a while, I okay. Let me back up for a second. So up till about like second grade, it was okay because I wasn't that far behind. But when I got up to like third grade and still couldn't read and couldn't write, and everybody else was surpassing me, that's when I started to get it started to get really rough. So I would say third grade till about 10th grade was really rough. What happened though? My mom was a good advocate because she had my brother go through, so she was pretty much schooled on everything that was going on with, you know, how to work the special ed system at the time. So she was smart. She had lawyers, she had advocates. She became a pretty good advocate herself. I'm sure the school district didn't particularly like her very much.
This is in the 1970s. This is in the 1970s.
70s and 80s.
The
Yep.
70s and 80s. Yeah, your mom was a pioneer.
She was, and so she actually when she formed some groups in Hamden. Uh, Very at the time I didn't call it this, but kind of neurodivergent affirming. So like she was like, hey, just because you're dyslexic doesn't mean that's a bad thing. You have a lot of gifts too. So she had a very positive view on it. It was really interesting. So she was a really good advocate. I did have a really great special ed teacher in elementary school that I really enjoyed. I kind of ended up basically sequestered down in the resource room for most of my time. I would just kind of go in, I had my class, and I would go down to the resource room and work with Miss Piazza. I'll never forget her. Her husband was a professor at Southern Connecticut State University in Reading. So I basically would go into my class, I'd check in, and I'd go down to the resource room. Now, some people say it's bad, but honestly, I loved it because I didn't really want to be in the main room because I couldn't keep up. I couldn't, I had a hard time managing myself. I'm very ADD, if you can't tell. I was super active as a kid. I couldn't sit still. And it was actually kind of nice when I went down to the resource room because I had this teacher who I actually did really like and had a really good relationship with. And then I also basically was one-to-one with her and this other kid that I was friends with. So we kind of both go down together and we'd spend pretty much most of our day there. We would go out for like specials and lunch and like recess, but most of the time we were in the resource room with this teacher. And other kids would kind of filter in and filter out, but we were pretty much like fixtures in there.
The usual suspects, huh?
Oh yeah. Yeah. If you've ever read Jonathan Mooney's book, or The Short Bus, I read that and I was like, oh my God, I could have written this. Like, this is crazy. Like, this sounds so much like my school experience. So with all that said, my mom got really super savvy and basically took a lawyer to the PPT, threatened the school to sue the school district, and they agreed on basically paying for an Orton Gillingham trained educational therapist. And this is like 1985. I was like in fifth grade. And things were really bad at that point. So I was like about 11 or 12, and I still couldn't really read. So, and I was like really, really depressed at that point. And I was just like done. I was like at like 12, and I was like, I think I'm gonna drop out, kind of thinking this. And anyway, so that was totally life changing. This guy, Richard Day, he actually is a psychologist. He's still active. He's down in Greenwich. And he totally like turned things around, like got me reading, with Orton Gillingham based approaches, with scientific reading approaches.
What's his name? What's his name? What's his name?
His name is Richard Day.
Oh yeah. Okay, I don't know.
Yeah, no, he's kind of he's not in the dyslexia world anymore. But so anyway, so he got me like reading. He taught me study skills. He worked on my I guess, my executive functioning. I didn't know what that was called at the time. And really, again, took a very strengths-based approach to how, like, I learned, while working on those deficits as well. So that was life-changing. Really, he probably brought me up like 4 grade levels, like in a year, which is wild. And
that's crazy.
Like crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's wild, wild. So yeah, and then things progressively got better from there. I mean, middle school sucks for everybody, and then high school was rough, but I kind of just found my interests, and especially towards the end of my high school, I didn't really stop caring. I just kind of followed my interest, and I was like, wait a minute, I can do this. Like, I can take these classes. I can, like, focus in on these issues or these topics. And really, I went, that's where it really changed and turned around. And then college came, and that was like a whole other thing. And then I went to Ivy League schools for graduate, an Ivy League school for graduate school. So that's even crazier.
That's a Jonathan. Wow. That's a Jonathan Mooney story. I mean, that's exactly it. So you're this kid, and they didn't know what to do with you back in the day. The school systems didn't know what to do. But
no, not really. No, they had a lot of, like, they were like, I was a little bit of I'm sure I was a tough nut to crack. Yeah. And then my mom made it even harder for them, which is good because it helped me in the long run. But yeah. So the combination of myself and my mom as an advocate, I'm sure it made my case even that much more spicy.
But this is pioneering stuff, and you're in the great state of Connecticut, where it's a good place if you got to be dyslexic. I mean, Connecticut's as good as any place to be dyslexic.
This is true. And it has a long history of those treatments and stuff, and those schools, and working with kids with dyslexia.
I mean, there's a lot of people right now who are up in arms, like in Connecticut, parents that are and kids. I mean, I grew up in a public school system in Connecticut as well. The information wasn't out there, but the information is out there nowadays. So,
right.
So you went to school. You went to Columbia Teachers College, and
yep.
But you're kind of an interesting dude in the fact that you walk the walk and talk the talk. My friend Margie Gillis, another Connecticut native, said, she's been in the education business for 50 years, which, and I love Margie, but I was like, hey, I've been in it for 50 years too, but I was in kindergarten, and so it's just like you, yeah. You've been an expert. You know what it's like to be in the resource room. So, which is all pretty cool. So you get married and you have 3 kids. 3 kids? How many kids do you have? 3? 3 boys.
3 kids. 3 boys. 3 boys. Noah, Elias, and Bjorn.
And
yep.
And they keep you hopping.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because
they're older now, so it's not as hopping as it was. But yeah, they're old. But they keep me hopping.
But you still like trail ride with them or bike ride, do you? Or
Well, they don't like to bike ride with me because I outride them. I have more energy than they do, which is really terrible to say. But they out snowboard me by a long shot, all of them. So I've been snowboarding for 30 plus years, and they are way better at snowboarding than I am at this point. So I smoke them on the bike, and they smoke me on the snowboard.
Well, that is the way I think life is supposed to be. Old men teaching them some lessons. Okay, so that's a beautiful thing. So now, so you got this family. So, how'd you balance like this work life, family life thing? Well, first of all, you were like Mr. Educator. So first you didn't like school, and then you
hated it,
and then you were Teach for America. You were Peace Corps. What was it?
Yeah. So what? Well, here's the wild thing. All right, so if I'll back up, and I'm going to kind of go forward. I'm going to back up a little bit to when I was 17. So I ended up working at a summer camp for kids with special needs with autism. And I didn't really know what that was. Yeah, I kind of knew what it was. I had some idea. And when I was at the camp,
wait a minute, I want to hear about that again.
The director was like,
no, I want to hear about that again. This camp, because you didn't know. You're in a special needs class. You're in a special needs class when you were a kid growing up,
Yep.
and then you ended up coincidentally just going to work at a camp for autism or special needs,
Yeah.
and you didn't know what it was.
Well, I mean, I knew it was special needs, but I didn't really know what I was getting myself into.
Okay.
So
How old are you? How old are you? How old are you?
I was 17 at the time.
Okay,
So
cool.
it was my
Sorry.
junior of high school. So, anyways, at this camp, I'm doing it's an overnight camp, and I'm like, what am I doing here? And it's crazy. But long story short, I met some really great people who are counselors. And the camp director was like, dude, you are so gifted with not like non-speaking autistic kids. That's not how he said it then, but it was a little different terminology. And I was like, oh, all right. And he's like, no, really, you have a gift. You don't even know it. And this guy like was like, no, you have this weird connection gift thing with this population. And I said, whatever. I didn't think much of it. So I did the whole summer, made some really close friends, changed some lives, maybe. Really kind of got fascinated by autism. And then I went back again. And he's like, no, really, Scott, you're super talented with this. Like, I've never seen anyone like that comfortable. You can get them to do things that other people can't. Like, you're getting communication out of them. You're like, and this is before they knew a lot about autism. So I was like, oh, that's cool. So I went to college and actually ended up studying anthropology as an undergrad. But I worked in group homes in college. I still worked at this camp. Even in college, I'd come back and work at this camp. And kind of when I finished up college, I was like, well, anthropology degree is completely useless unless I wanted to become an anthropologist, which I really didn't. So just because I was like, well, Teach for America sounds cool. And it was kind of new at the time. It was like in the mid 90s. And I was kind of doing it for prestige. I hate to say it. At the time, I was like, wanted to kind of prove it to myself and prove it to other people that I could go get into this really prestigious, highly selective teaching corps.